People have been harassing me for the last 3 days. Rigiji, you are the most truthful man south of Sahara, north of River Limpopo. You always tell Kenyans what is happening. Ukisema mafuta ataongezwa na shilingi 40, inaongezwa na ngapi? Ukituambia gold inatoka Sudan, inakuwa. Wewe Rigiji, kwa nini huku tuambia hii maneno ya Ebola inaletwa Kenya? I have not spoken to that matter because I've actually been in shock. When I heard about it, I actually thought it is fake news. I thought it's AI. It has taken me time until my son, who is a medical doctor, Dr. Keith, came to see me yesterday morning and told me it is true. The United States government has said their citizens having Ebola should not step into their land because of the danger of any possible mishandling that can wipe the entire population of the United States of America. Then the United States of America have said, look for some country somewhere where we can take these people because we don't want them in our own. Woe unto us that the country has been identified as to where people with Ebola can be taken for quarantine, so that if something goes wrong, it doesn't go wrong in the United States, it is Kenya. We want to say this is wrong. We have nothing against the United States, but we are also a responsible country. If the US is saying this Ebola thing is so serious, we don't want our own citizens brought here because of the danger of any spread. It cannot be that Kenya, we are so good, we are so magnanimous, that we are willing to take the risk that the United States is not willing to take. I want to say this is wrong, and I want to agree with the High Court of Kenya, who have issued a conservatory order stopping the establishment of an Ebola center within the Republic of Kenya.
It is very imprudent for the government to expose Kenyans to Ebola in the name of money. We can't allow that as a country. I'm requesting the government to stop experimentations, and especially when it comes to the lives of the Kenyan people. The US is a developed economy, just like all the other developed economies. They have a bigger muscle financially. They have better R&D in terms of healthcare than us. It is very imprudent for the government to expose Kenyans to Ebola in the name of money. We can't allow that as a country.
William Ruto and his administration can listen to America saying that they do not want any infected person because their policy is to protect Americans first. How dare them entertain the idea that they can bring Ebola-affected people to Kenya to protect America but endanger the Kenyan population, when he swore by the Bible that he will obey the Constitution, which commands him to take the best interests of Kenyans into consideration before any decision.
Yeye bora apewe pesa. Bora Ruto apewe pesa. Anaweza kutuuza sisi wote kwa shetani mwenyewe. Unajua, wakati alipeleka polisi wetu Haiti, ilikuwa kwa sababu alipewa nini? Alipewa pesa, si ndio? Saa hii amepewa pesa na Marekani, wanamwambia, Marekani wenyewe wanasema, tunajua wale watu wako na hiyo ugonjwa wa Ebola ni watu wetu. They are American citizens. But they are not being allowed back into their own country because the American people need to be protected from Ebola. Then there is this character somewhere mwenye akipewa 1.7 billion shillings anasema leta hiyo watu. Badala waambie, we as a global community, our best.
A developing story is causing concern across Kenya and beyond after reports emerged that the United States government under President Donald Trump has directed the establishment of a quarantine facility in Kenya for Americans exposed to Ebola during the ongoing outbreak in parts of East and Central Africa.
Something else that I know is concerning people, because it's on the news, is Ebola. Our number one obligation, we're involved in foreign policy, but even our foreign policy, the number one priority of our foreign policy is to protect the American people. We cannot and will not allow any cases of Ebola to enter the United States. And so the State Department and other agencies represented here, the Centers for Disease Control, HHS, others, are working very, very hard to contain this crisis to the countries where it's currently located, particularly the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And so we've surged assistance to make sure that is being contained there. And obviously, multiple agencies involved here are also very involved in tracking people, just to make sure that nobody comes into this country that has Ebola and creates a problem for us. And we feel like we've got good efforts in place to do that, and Americans should feel assured that the President and his administration.
At the same time, Kenyan authorities are insisting that there are currently no confirmed Ebola cases in Kenya, despite 16 suspected cases having been investigated.
Ebola ishafika Kenya. We have a few suspected cases, but the interesting thing is the government has decided that we are able to handle the Ebola cases. I've not seen any trainings going around for healthcare workers, but apparently we are going to have a facility that majorly takes care of Americans, because they're the ones who are funding the system and they're the ones who are funding the facility. Honestly, Kenya is a joke.
Right now as we speak, Kenya have 0 records of Ebola patients. Lakini saa hizi Amerika iko na watu ambao wako na Ebola. Lakini kwa sababu SHA inafanya, kwa sababu wamepewa 1.9 billion na kuna pesa nyingine wataongezewa na WHO, Kenya iko ready kuchukua wagonjwa wa Ebola.
According to the government, all 16 individuals tested negative for the virus. But as discussions surrounding the proposed US-backed quarantine facility intensify, many Kenyans are now asking difficult questions. Why Kenya? What exactly is being planned? And how has the government responded? The issue first gained attention after reports indicated that the Trump administration had ordered US agencies and the military to establish a quarantine and treatment facility in Kenya within a week. The facility was reportedly planned for Laikipia Air Base and was intended to accommodate American citizens who may have been exposed to Ebola while working or traveling in outbreak-affected regions such as Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda. Initial plans suggested a 50-bed facility that could later be expanded. The move represents a major shift in US policy. During previous Ebola outbreaks, Americans exposed to the virus were often transported back to the United States for monitoring and treatment. Under the new strategy, exposed Americans would instead be quarantined in Kenya and, if developed symptoms, potentially transferred to treatment facilities in Europe rather than the United States itself. Meanwhile, concern spread quickly among Kenyans after headlines linked the quarantine plans to the country's Ebola preparedness efforts. However, the Kenyan government has maintained that there is no Ebola outbreak in Kenya. Speaking on behalf of the Ministry of Health, senior government officials stated that the 16 suspected Ebola cases identified across the country were all tested and found negative. Authorities emphasized that Kenya's disease surveillance systems are functioning effectively and that enhanced screening has been activated at entry points, airports, and border crossings. The government further assured citizens that laboratories remain on high alert and that health officials are closely monitoring developments in neighboring countries where outbreaks have been reported. According to officials, Kenya has strengthened surveillance systems, activated emergency response mechanisms, and intensified monitoring to prevent any potential cross-border spread of the virus. But the proposed quarantine facility quickly became controversial. Civil society groups, health professionals, and some members of the public questioned whether Kenya should host a facility designed to quarantine foreign nationals potentially exposed to Ebola. Concerns ranged from public safety and transparency, whether the arrangement had received adequate public participation and legal approval. The controversy eventually reached the courts. In a dramatic development, a Kenyan court temporarily suspended plans for the facility following legal challenges filed by activists and constitutional watchdog groups. The court ruled that the matter required further examination before implementation.
A Kenyan judge has just blocked that Ebola quarantine facility for Americans for now. This was supposed to open today, according to the Washington Post, a 50-bed facility. Overnight, President Ruto spoke with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Rubio saying that the U.S. will give Kenya $13.5 million, that's 1.7 billion Kenya shillings, for Ebola preparedness efforts. Now, the Kenyan judge has just blocked not just the facility, but also barring the Kenyan government from admitting, transferring, accepting anybody exposed to Ebola or anybody who is confirmed to have Ebola. But that's only temporary. It's until June 2nd when the issue will come up for mention again. There's huge public outrage about this in Kenya and in the US as well. The Law Society of Kenya has filed a constitutional petition.
Could proceed. As a result, the planned facility was blocked from beginning operations pending further legal proceedings. Despite the legal setback, the U.S. administration has defended its strategy, arguing that the facility will help protect Americans working in Ebola-affected regions while minimizing the risk of transporting potentially exposed individuals back to the United States territory. U.S. officials have also stated that additional funding will be directed toward Kenya's Ebola preparedness efforts. As the debate continues, one thing remains clear. Kenya finds itself at the center of an international public health discussion despite having no confirmed Ebola cases. The government is attempting to reassure citizens that the country remains safe, while critics continue demanding more transparency regarding any agreements involving foreign quarantine operations on Kenyan soil. For now, Kenyan authorities insist that there is no cause for panic. All 16 suspected Ebola cases tested negative and surveillance systems remain active across the country. Yet the controversy surrounding the proposed U.S. quarantine facility has opened a new chapter in Kenya's public health and diplomatic discussions. So what do you think? Should Kenya host such a facility for Americans exposed to Ebola, or was the court right to halt the plan pending further scrutiny? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this update, don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest stories. Until next time, stay informed and stay safe.